Welcome to Common Ground, conversations exploring the stories and perspectives of people building the UK India corridor. My name is Lakshmi Kaul, and I'm bringing you this UK India series for global order. Long before India became a global economic power, long before the world spoke about cultural diplomacy, one man was quietly changing how Britain experienced South Asia. For more than 5 decades, he continued to introduce thousands of artists to international audiences. He built institutions that preserved Indian classical traditions and helped create one of the largest archives of South Asian performing arts outside of India. Today, as he prepares to hand over the baton, we ask what it really takes to preserve culture in a rapidly changing world. I'm very pleased to be welcoming Jay Visvadeva, cultural strategist and honorary artistic director at Sama Arts. Namaste, Jayji, and welcome.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for having me on board. It has been a fascinating journey right from 1970 onwards, because that's the time when I came to UK from East Africa in May 1970s. I traveled throughout London to pick and choose, just see what's happening. I saw some Festival of India posters, and my curiosity led me to the South Bank Centre, where the Sanskritic Festival of Arts of India, the first of the events, and it was sold out, but I had to get in. So I waited. I asked the backstage staff to put me through the team. And I was so lucky that a gentleman by the name of Mr. Sukumar Pathak said, "Come with me." And he led me to a television screen and he made me sit down. I was fascinated by what I saw on the TV screen. And what I heard kind of started this journey. And after the event, he asked me questions as to whether I was interested in helping. So I became a member of the festival, and I stayed with the festival for 8 seasons until I decided that there was something that I could do, which the festival did not want to do, was to present regular concerts. My idea was to present a monthly concert. So that's how my company, which is still running today, then next year will be marking the 50th year. I started with 3 artists, all outstanding in their own right. Ustad Shamim Ahmad Khan, disciple of Pandit Ravi Shankar, Ustad Rais Khan, another great sitar player, and Pandit Vasant Rai, who was the last student of Ustad Alauddin Khan. My first encounter was with Pandit Ravi Shankar ji and George Harrison, and that opened up a kind of a panorama of what I was expecting. And then I saw the selection of artists, I got acquainted, I started to converse with them, asking questions, and I used to make tea for them. I used to interpret for them because many of them did not speak English, and I used to take them shopping, so there was a bond between me and the artists. During the 8 seasons, I think I must have met almost 150 artists from India. Some went on to become superstars in their own right, like Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma, Pandit Hari Prasad, Srimati Girija Devi, and so forth. I met Aina Devangadi, who was the premier producer of art and culture from 1940s to early 70s, who introduced George Harrison to Ravi Shankar, and that's how the story of theirs began. And of course, during that period, there were other masters like Beban Bhattacharya. He was a field recordist. He used to go all over the world, record music of different tradition. He fascinated me, and I followed him. So by the time within 6 months, I had 3 mentors already. The other one was the great sarod player Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, whose music I heard in my early days. And then I happened to meet my spiritual guru, Pandit Vishnu Narayan. He was a Sanskrit scholar, a priest, and a researcher. And through him, I was inspired to learn Sanskrit. And he was interested in the Vedic tradition. So he asked me whether we could collaborate to do some Vedic music. At that time, Indian films were scarce, so I joined a group which brought Indian, see the other side of the cultural scenario where Bollywood icons used to come to Britain, singers especially. Mohammad Rafi Saab, Hemant Kumar, Lata Mangeshkar ji, Aja Bhosle, you name it, they were all coming. And for us at that time, it was really something special. I wanted to know how the law and the arts meet. So I went towards the intellectual property area of copyright, patents, and trademark. I specialized and I became a music publisher. For licensing music for motion pictures, documentaries, you need to obtain licenses. The interest was to present the very best in our arts and culture. So I started with 3 artists, and then as the years went by, I used to present between 50 to 100 concerts average for almost 50 years. I had to negotiate with all the concert halls to open up their doors. They were reluctant, and I wanted the very best concert halls. I could not present a concert in a church hall or a small unknown place. So I started at the South Bank, and then I think other concert halls came on board. You had, of course, I did present events at the Royal Albert Hall, the Barbican Center after it opened in 82. Of course, South Bank was the main area, and there were other university concert halls. The Bloomsbury Theatre used to be called the Collegiate Theatre during its time. The Riverside Studios, which now is owned by Vedanta, Anil Agrawal, who has acquired it, which is a good sign. Our art fraternity was happy that such a experience was had by British audience. They were able to enjoy the arts in a regular way rather than wait a year. So between 1977 to early 90s, when the internet was just coming in, we were probably one of the sole producers of high-level music programs from India and the subcontinent, because you see, during the period, the US flights had to stop in London before they went onwards to USA. There was a direct flight from Delhi to New York. We lost out. We lost out in a big way because we used to divide our expenses, and artists used to enjoy stopping over in London, either on their way to the USA or on the way back. So bulk of the programs were presented in such a manner. Now it is impossible. The airline industry has changed. The social media has changed the scenario. So live concert is perhaps the only bread and butter for the artistic fraternity. They lost out big time on their music, especially the recorded music, videos. In the early days, we used to pay artists 3 aspects of rights. First, the performance. Second, the audio, and third, the video. And sometimes they were combined. But that honeymoon was over after the bubble burst. So the social media has its advantages and disadvantages. The record industry just completely collapsed all over the world because everybody was uploading nearly everything onto the social media. So there were a lot of copyright infringement. But I'm thankful that I ended up in UK as a very young lad. So I spent a year sabbatical in the USA, and I was looking at the artistic and cultural life in the USA, where the endowment policy, because they don't have grant system like the Arts Council. The funding was entirely done by corporate companies and families who used to raise endowment funds for advancement and betterment for art. In UK, it was totally different, that we were dependent on the subsidy and grants that were given. But what I found, and this is a very sad indictment to our South Asian business fraternity, that they did not and still do not support the arts, just like people in America and Europe. You see, artistic programs cost money to sustain and to make art a soft power. I mean, India's artistic heritage is a soft power, very powerful soft power, where artistic structures, have been there for thousands of years. But we have not taken cognizance of our valued heritage. If the business houses gave a little bit of support, I think India's soft power would be far stronger, and it could also create a generational interest in our diaspora. And that is my crusade. Most important thing is the language. Language is so important. I mean, I give my example that when I was listening to Srimati Girija Devi's Tumri at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, the words were so profound. I did not understand. It was she. It was Srimati Girija Devi who prompted, unknowing to her, that what she inspired in me was this linguistic curiosity of the song, the words that she sang. The Purab Anki Gaiki, which was highly traditional way of singing songs of longing, songs of seasons, and so forth. So I came back home and I went to my local library in Finchley, dug out books in Hindi, and I found out 3 books. So with my A levels, I started to pick up Hindi, and I was self-taught, but although I got a lot of learnings from my Guru Pandit Vishnu Narayan, although he was a Sanskrit priest and a scholar, his Hindi was of impeccable standard. So he was my first guru, and of course, the Hindi service of Voice of America and the Hindi service of BBC became my alma mater.
You worked with, so many artists and so many performances, so much curation that you've done over the years. What is different today than those days? What has changed completely?
I think there's a marked difference of what I heard in the 40 years from 1970 to probably 2000. People had to become internet friendly. But I would say the most important difference was in the aesthetics, the content, the form, and the presentation, which unfortunately is not the case in today's artistic firmament because of the level of tutorship they receive. But they have actually replaced the Guru Shishya Parampara. We don't have those gurus anymore. Even the gurus are struggling. The 40 years that I speak of from 1970 to 2010 were, in my view, from my own experience, was the golden period where I heard first-hand music of some of the great masters. So that's all intact, and it's all preserved. We've recorded all the concerts, and through Navras Records we produced them, and now it has become the archive, and the catalog have become part of Sony Music India. So everything is coming out through the digital platform, whereas the CD business ended up for Navras around about 2015. We could not produce any more CDs because the moment you release a CD, it's already on YouTube. So we could not make sales. Yes, from 92 to 2010 was a good period, but record industry died because of the advent of social media. The only livelihood of our artistic communities by presenting concerts. That's their only income. There is no income for recorded music. And the other thing is that there is this psychology of viewership, subscribers. We are more concerned with subscribers, viewership, than let's say a concert recorded. Anybody and everyone has got smartphone, and they just take it out of their pocket and film everything. So they are the consumers, but they are not giving anything back. So the artists are not earning anything.
The original artists, and that originality is missing. Also,
You
I
see,
suppose, the discipline of listening has almost disappeared. You want something for 30 seconds.
Yeah,
You
that's
can enjoy a song for 1 minute. But I've heard of concerts going on for a whole night when the artist has that kind of response from audience.
That's what I meant earlier, that we were talking about aesthetics. We talked about form, content, and presentation. In our Hindi traditional literature, we call it Roop, Rang, and Rekha. These aesthetical values are so important, but the interest is so low. I can't tell you. Our channels, especially of Indian origin, they do not carry literature. They do not carry art. All they're interested is interviewing XYZ, and that's it. There's no depth because there's no money. For example, the Drupad art form is perhaps one of the oldest vocal tradition of the subcontinent. People used to sing the guru and the artists used to sing Alap for an hour and Drupad for another 40 minutes, 30 minutes. 90 minutes average a Drupad performance. I'm a Drupad fan. I've promoted a lot of Drupad in the UK, but it's the attention span. People don't have that. They get very fidgety. And then, of course, you have people who, scroll through their tablet or iPhone or
And
whatever,
bringing it to the concert hall and
satisfied with a minute, 2 minutes clip. And that is what is driving the viewership. My life has been live music. It's what I do on stage, how I present, what I curate. It's all important. It's the people who attend concerts. They matter.
so let's talk about chaos. And tell me, what is the most chaotic concert that you've organized in your life?
There's so many. 1986, the Greater London Council, which was run by Ken Livingstone, it was a Labour run council, and the power was in the hands of Tory under Mrs. Margaret Thatcher. Mrs. Thatcher did not like the politics of the Greater London Council, and they brought in a policy to abolish the GLC. GLC did a lot of work in their support for the arts. I was a recipient of their support. So the committee asked me to curate a 3-day festival at the Royal Albert Hall. And Mrs. Thatcher's government was opposing that idea, that the GLC should not have a farewell events at the cost of the taxpayers. But the Labour Council defied and it went ahead, and I was commissioned to do that festival. And great artists, most of them came, others could not come because they were not given visas. When they arrived, they were taken, they were detained. I had to go personally and release them under my cognizance. And I used to bring the artists into the concert hall just an hour before their performance. That was the chaos. 3 days running, 10 groups ended up they were detained. So we did that festival, 3 days festival, but people did not know what was happening. But we carried it out. We delivered the program, probably 60%, if not 100%. People didn't understand what a promoter goes through. It's very difficult. Today, anybody with a small amount of budget can advertise, can call themselves an organizer and do a program. I used to be very sad when the audit used to take place every year of my mailing. I mean, I built up a mailing list of over 20,000 people, and each mailing cost between 5 to 7,000 pounds. It's the third column that I used to worry about, that I used to find out who died amongst the people I knew. And for me, that was very sad because, when you see your audience dwindling like that. I mean, on an average year, I could see about 15, 20 people dying.
Lived
And if you're
experience.
learning Indian music, you have to go into the heart of the matter and go and see the country at large. Go to Dharamshala, go to Kerala, go to the mountains, go to the small villages, sit, observe, perform, practice, get India into you. This is what I tell each and every young aspirant, that if you are learning Indian music, you have to go to the heart of the matter. Collect money, spend that in India. Go to the gurus, go to the gurukuls, go to dance centers like Kalamandala. Go to Kalakshetra. All this is very well executed in Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra. That Indian aesthetics come a long way when you integrate everything as an experience. When I talk about languages, I mean that person has to go behind that language and learn why he has played such a note. When I listen to music, I listen to music not just simply physical listening. It has to be in its totality, what each rag, what kind of mood that rag brings to you. It's not just simply closing your eyes and listening to it without bringing in the work of origin, the place of origin where this music belongs to. That is why I tell teachers to get all these aspects into the child. But the teachers are not conversant at this level. Nobody will go out of their way to teach a child about aesthetics. Somebody who has got value will teach such aspect. Today, the devotional music of India is now getting too much attention amongst our youth. The Bhakti tradition is as old as India. Kabir Das and all the poets of India, Baba Bule Shah, Baba Farid, Namdev, Kabir Das, all these great poets, their work is relevant even today. And these songs, such a welcome part of what is happening, that the youngsters have taken up bhajan, devotional songs. But for some, it's just simply an entertainment. It doesn't go deeper. The people who croon all these songs over and over, some are totally out of tune, but they sing and they get an audience. I would put a lot of responsibilities down to parents as well, because I don't think the parents are doing enough. So that's where I think we have to put our attention to as a society, that if we go full ahead about enhancing our cultural values, then everything has to be inclusive.
How exclusivity is really killing access to arts in some way.
Actually, as far as I'm concerned, exclusivity has killed the Indian ethos. In the Vedas, we speak the aim of one work. And I think it's the Vedic line that I learned years ago through the inspiration of my guru, that the aim of one work is labor of love, to enjoy the very best of what you love without receiving any reciprocal perks. I've never done anything for money. Yes, I raised money to do the program, but money was not the criteria. That's why I was able to do what I did over the years, because it was a spirited program and I had to negotiate with the artists, not commercially, but the essence of reciprocity, that yes, we value your contribution, but just imagine where my work would take you. And now these artists are getting the second bite of the cherry, third bite of the cherry, because we've recorded all that. It's now part of a much wider dissemination through companies like Sony Music India. It's a cultural heritage being preserved amongst the great companies. I mean, we don't have that facility. So it is the work, the catalog has gone to Sony Music. And my colleague Vibhakar Bakshi, myself, and Satish Vyasji in Bombay, we three have come together to talk to the descendants of the people whose music we have recorded, presented, getting the memorandum of understanding signed, and trying to explain to them that this is the work of their forefathers, fathers, uncles, and whatever. It has been preserved and it has to go to the public domain. And there is this royalty. This is what you get. Now, this is the task that I'm doing now. It's part of an A&R work. And getting in touch with these family members, it's also difficult because their understanding is totally different. Their expectation is different. But I have to come in to explain to them what this is for. Why is it happening? Why now and not before? And I said, everything has got legitimacy. Everything has to be done through a legal process. We could have released this and you would not have known. I said, we are not of that unethical standard. And some of these members of the family want lump sum. The days of lump sum have gone. Even the advance against royalty have gone. So I've got to educate them in today's time that if we had this 15, 20 years ago, things would have been different.
It's building a relationship, every single note, every single interaction.
Yes, and I tell people about relationship. Everybody can't have an agent that Ravi Shankarji had. Perhaps this is the only agency relationship that was successful. No other Indian artists have succeeded in this agency relationship because India now is slightly different, but India did not have agents. India did not have middle person handling careers of musician. Every musician was a deal maker. And every musician's wife, brother, son's daughter became business managers. It was fundamentally wrong when you have family members, they're business partners, because they are emotionally involved in decision making. There is no objectivity. That's why the model has failed dismally, that all artists, aspiring artists, have to have an agent who is not a family member. In the Western schools, Western classical schools like the Royal Academy of Music, Royal College of Music, Trinity, Guildhall, These premier institutes have they reserve one term towards the graduation part, that every artist should know how to communicate with the world outside, be it securing an agent for their work or to find work. In our South Asian tradition, because of the Guru Shishya Parampara and all that, our musicians are not taught about relationships. They are not taught about how to talk to people. I think this is a biggest failure in our artistic culture, as to how to carry yourself off the stage. On the stage, you're fine, but what matters is when you come off the stage. And the thing is that I think, in essence, the cab rule principle is followed, that you pay me and I take you here XYZ. But in ours, there's no continuity. You take help from one producer 1 year and then you're forgotten. When the artists come to Britain the next year, they don't even make that courtesy call, you know? And that is where our fraternity has failed, because they interfere despite having agents. Because the thing is that they don't trust agents. That's why the work falls into the family. And when it falls into the family, you don't get that professionalism to move ahead.
You've talked about many things. You've kind of alluded to the sacrifices that you have made, the frustrations, the angst that went into it. What are those sacrifices that nobody actually has seen because they saw you as a successful producer, successful curator?
Ustad Sultan Khan Sahib said something very profound, that one should never break the promoter's back. They should always be helpful to a promoter. After all, he is a human. He's trying to do the very best. Because I walk away slowly, I withdraw, and I can't deliver, do not know what to do. And when I say that, they seem to wonder, why has he said no? They think that I could do it, but I think I could not, because their expectations are different. I put values both from my Indian roots, my Western education, and my cultural identity. I have to work through all these three areas to produce a result that is beneficial to the community, to me, and the artist. But I cannot do something which I cannot afford. Sometimes it's my mind. There has been a huge sacrifice in putting a program, especially on the British stage. And I think a lot of people have taken for granted that they can do it, if not through me, through other third parties. But there were no producers or promoters prior to 2010. Everybody has come alive or were born or started to program after 2010 because of the internet, and publicity and everything was there too. We went through the old school, put the careers of some of the great artists of India on the platform. And that was a good part. We brought out the very best of the artists. So apart from the troubles in the background, it did not deter us of the final delivery. It's the debris that people like me pick up after the concert. To make the payment, if the payment is late, you got to explain that there is frustration. But from my personal experience, I have never ever let any musicians down. Come what may, they get their money at some point in time, if we can't pay them on time, that is. That's why sponsors are important. Business support is important. People in my life who have come and supported concerts, like Mr. Vibhakar Bakshi, with whom I set up the Navras record. He liked the work I did, and then we became business partners together, and he used to put money where his mouth is. And together we achieved one of the great feats in music history of setting up Navras Records. Now, with an aging process in us, we have to see that the legacy work continues. The Qawwali genre is changing. The new generation is taking Qawwali out of its box and putting something to it, like orchestra, written music, and so forth. Our instruments are changing. Although I don't agree, we have some beautiful acoustic instruments, sitar, sarod, sarangi, veena. But people are changing these instruments for Western consumption. When I mean Western consumption, I mean people of Indian origin in the West. They want to see innovation. But I ask a question. Does the Western establishment, especially the Western classical tradition, where cellos, violins, violas, are they putting that to a change as well? The answer is no. We don't. I find it so offensive that our musicians are putting, sound jack into the sitar to produce a sound that today's audience will like. If you put similar thing to Veena, it sounds like a guitar. We have an acoustic history. Our instruments are ancient. We can't have something called Zetar, a small contraption where you can do all kinds of pyrotechnics on stage. But we are forgetting our own instruments. The tanpuras. We have electronic tanpura box. Synthetic sound. You need traditional sound. There is no other instrument other than a tanpura, which is the natural sound of vibration. And it gives the main tonic to the artist on the stage. We are forgetting that. You're putting electronic boxes on the front of the stage, you tune it, and that's it. It doesn't sound the same. There was one interesting experience I had. In 2001, I had Festival of Songs of Love and Devotion, and I had Fakirs of Shah Latif, the minstrels from Sindh, and they recite songs of Shah Latif in a highly traditional manner. So I presented them at the Queen Elizabeth Hall. Would you believe audiences started to get up and leave the concert hall because they could not understand what they were singing? But the next day or the day after, they went to the Salzburg Festival. And there were 20,000 people at the Salzburg Festival. And it was an all-night concert. Guess what happened? Those 15 to 20,000 people listened to the minstrels of Shah Latif the all night without one noise.
And why? Why is that?
Spirituality. You don't have to understand the art form. You got to feel. Same as Drupad. Drupad's Nom Tum Alap is so highly traditional that some people just laugh and go away. That's the
But
essence
those who
of
stay are the ones who benefit from it.
Yeah. So the thing is, it is not having patience or understanding. My colleagues too felt that, what is this, Jay, you're presenting? But I said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You just listen to them. Switch off and listen. Don't try hard to understand. Just feel it. Why do Western audiences fill up concert halls in all over the world listening to West African music? They don't understand the language. It's the feel, how you receive music. Similarly, in our classical, it's how the alap is enjoyed. The whole ethos is in the alap. When tabla comes, it's basically to keep time. But today's tabla player have become forced to reckon with because they demand so. The tabla player of today's generation wants an equal footing with the main artist. But traditionally speaking, that this can never be because an artist, the main artist who is the instrumentalist, has to put so much into the music, whereas tabla player is only keeping the time. And yet they want the equal benefit. And tabla player also want their own part in the concert itself, that they want to do, perform little more improvisation, but it's going to disturb the main musician of what they thought. So it's you don't get the very best out of our music, be it instrumental or vocal. Yes, they can improvise, but they have to integrate this improvisation in such a way that they have to lift the performance, not be competitive.
One artist who changed your life.
I think Lakshmi, when I was a little boy, I used to go to a record store in Nairobi. That's my city of birth. In those days, you could go into a record store and listen to EP or LP. It was the sound of the instrument that really bowled me over. And that instrument was the sarod. So the sound that I heard was very earthy sound, that I felt the sound is coming from the Mother Earth. Those is my first impression at the age of 10, 11 years old. Then I came to London, and during my process of discovery, I was able to hear the sarod face to face with Ustad Rahmat Ali Khan, the elder brother of Ustad Amjad Ali Khan. His style was traditional, and the baj, the way he played the stroke, was different. It reminded me of his father, Ustad Hafiz. But the person who changed my entire ethos of music listening was the music of Ali Akbar Khan Sahib. And amongst the 6 gurus, mentor that I have had, his music was to me very important. And it has always remained so. The second strata was the music of Pandit Nikhil Banerjee. He used to tour UK during that time, and I had a chance to listen to him. Of course, I had heard Raviji, but his style was different. Then Ustad Vilayat Khan, all these musicians I met in the early 70s. But the pinnacle, the top apex was that of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. And it is his music that represented my consciousness.
Okay. And one concert that you'll never forget.
There are so many. I remember, of course, his concert at the St. George's, Hanover Square, 1979 was with Ustad Zakir Hussain. A friend of mine and I put this concert together in such a short period of time. And it was a magnificent concert because I had gone to America to persuade Khan Sahib to come to London because he couldn't find anybody to do his concerts. So I stepped in. So I looked after his concerts in Europe from mid to late 70s to mid 90s. So I did 37 concerts for Khan Sahib. But he played some great concerts. But I think the one in 1979 at the Hanover Square concert was really one of the top tens because it was such a great performance by Khan Sahib. Then, of course, the Dagar brothers, Jugalbandi at the Riverside Studios, Ustad Mohyuddin Dagar and Ustad Aminuddin Dagar. It's an all-night concert. Then Ustad Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, Pandit Bhimsen Joshi, Pandit Jasraj, and then, of course, the duets of Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma and Hari Prasad, and of course, accompanied by Zakir Hussain. There were many great concerts which really appealed to me in performance, and they remain some of my top-notch concerts.
One city with the best audience.
London.
And one performance you wish you could watch again.
There are quite a few. There was a concert sometime in the mid 90s. Of course, I could not pull it off. I wish I had. It was a duet of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahib and Pandit Ravi Shankar when I did only Jugalbandi in that 94 series. I had the funds I had raised or had committed from third parties, but I just could not bring these two people together. But their duets have been significant, although I had to fly to Washington, D.C. from London in 85 to go and listen to their duets. The duet performances, of course, I like duet singing. There's so many of our artists, Rajan Sajan Mishra, the Dagars, and of course, then you had duets by Pandit Bhimsen Joshi and Dr. Balamurali Krishna. Those we've presented and recorded and released. Then we had duets between Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahib and Ustad Bismillah Khan Sahib. Those concerts attracted me a lot. We presented them. And yes, they are in the archive.
One thing India is in danger of losing.
Patience. You see, India has a character which is partly patience. We have to preserve our heritage to the fullest. But India, unfortunately, is running so fast that it's losing itself, is not paying attention to its soft power because it feels that it is a rider in an agreement rather than the main crux, that an artistic culture is equally important as building up rockets. Scientists heard music inspired them in their thoughts, and I feel that if India does not take care of its ancient artistic history, then we'll don't have much to show.
There's so much inspiration. There is so much experience. I could relate with so much of what you have said because in my very little way, I've been part of some curation of some programs you've been very kindly supporting and guiding and all of that. So I could feel the pain. I do feel the pain of what you've persevered, what you've built.
Thank you, Lakshmi. This is the first interview of its kind that has allowed me to speak at this level. I normally don't do interviews, but yours was an exception. I said yes. But the fact is that we all have a story to say. Every human being has a story to say. Some have more to say, but equally important, an ordinary person has a story to say. And I think the stories have to be rendered, spoken, and narrated so that people through all walks of life are able to understand what goes here and there for its life.
For the sake of we talk about preserving our civilizational identity. And I think it's just so important to hear this sort of a story. It's not a very common story. It's not what you will hear from everyone. So I'm really grateful for everything that
Before I end, in addition to these cultural values, I think the most important aspect is etiquette. We refer to what we call as sanskar in the Western terminology. We call it etiquette. In the Urdu Hindustani tradition, we call it adab. These are all very important aspect of character, reciprocity, acceptance. So this value system is important in order to preserve cultural tradition. Then also then we can go to ethics and morality. We can talk about languages, linguistic respect. All this slang language of Bollywood and other platforms, it doesn't go well, because I think language to cinema is so important. People are speaking English only in India. They're not speaking their mother tongue. That's also, and when I talk about cultural aspect, all this are integrated in there.
And this whole conversation around trade economics, there is an economical aspect to this. This is a creative industry, put together. The classical arts, the contemporary arts, the performing arts, everything. And it does contribute a lot of money. I mean, around 2.4 million jobs. There's around 124 billion, in exports. It's just so much money at stake. And there is
It's a
just a
huge
little, yeah.
It's a huge industry, and I think we have to give importance to this aspect of creative industry to make it all integral and inclusive. And then only we can cross that bridge. A child must be able to express all aspects of his or her music making and what roads he has to travel and what bridges he has to cross in order to bring in for his presentation aspects that are not seen but felt.
Exactly. And it's the living bridge that we keep talking about between India and UK or any diasporic community. And the living bridge is very, very carefully founded on that civilizational depth and value. And if we as individuals, those conduits of that living bridge, do not value it, then we have no civilizational depth, therefore no identity. There's a complete loss of identity eventually that we are going to deal with. So the work that you've done is priceless. Thank you again for your journey.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you.
And thank you for everyone watching this beautiful interview and the series that we brought to you through Common Ground. If you found this conversation inspirational, please continue to engage with us and continue to follow us and listen to this conversation, contribute to it. Namaste.